In this video on Google Sheets, I'm going to show you how to sort and filter your data using the transpose, filter, sort, and unique functions to work with your data. Let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to show you the transpose feature. Now transpose is just a way of sort of flipping a range both vertically and horizontally. This is really one of those things where it's just going to be a lot easier if I show you. I'm going to start by creating a grid of 10 numbers. So this is now a grid that is 5 across by 2 down. If I use the transpose feature, it's going to flip that. So I'm going to hit the equal sign because I'm putting in a function, and I'm going to type transpose, and I want to select my range, close it out, and now it went from something that was 2 down and 5 across to something that's 5 down and 2 across. So basically it just sort of flipped it sort of there. So basically it just flipped the data. Now one thing to note, if I use my control tilde toggle, you'll notice the only thing in here that's actually a function is this first cell. What makes this interesting is if I try to delete this data, I can't. Here I'm hitting the delete button, the backspace button. Nothing here will clear them out permanently because each of these is simply just a product of this root cell here, and that is a product of the data. If I was to delete the source data, now you can see that's actually going to change it. But you can't delete it by deleting this. Instead, I have to go up there. Of course, if I was to delete this one root cell here, the whole thing will disappear. So that's the transpose. Let me show you how that might look if I was to look at my Amazon cart. So here's the sheet that we should all be very familiar with by now. I'm going to have my Amazon cart like this, where I have the titles across the top, the items across the side. If I was to use the transpose, that would flip it. Let me demonstrate. Now what I have is those titles, instead of being across the top, they're along the side. The items, instead of being along the side here, are now going to be along the top. So everything was flipped. Once again, I can't actually delete this data here. All I'm doing is deleting the reference. If I delete that, that of course will flip it here. And you'll notice all of these things are still going to be reflective of all the equations that I have built in here. But of course, everything's just going to be a product now of this. If I delete that reference, it's going to change it here, which is going to change this as well. So changing the source data will change what you have transposed, but you can't really delete this. Instead, you have to find the root cell, which is right here. I can see that with my control tilde toggle. Here's my root cell. If I delete that, that's how you have to delete the transpose. One way you might find this useful is if you're working with data that's inside a Google form. Now this is the way Google form is actually going to feed stuff into a spreadsheet here. You're going to have the timestamp, username, name, etc., etc., etc. Here's the answers to all those questions that I have here. But you might want to take that and you might want to flip that. Transpose is nice because it allows us to flip things on the fly, even when there's new data involved. Let me demonstrate. So now I'm going to hit transpose, and I'm going to go here to my student submissions, and I'm going to select all of this data right here. Actually, I might just do that all the way to the letter I. Now, I've taken all that data right here, and now it's flipping everything on its head. It's going to be doing everything that is entered new here will be added onto my transposition right here. One thing that I might look at this and think is, I don't really need that timestamp, but that's very easy to change. So that was starting at A2. Instead, I could just change that with one keystroke to be just B2. So watch the difference now. So now I've completely removed that, and this is just another way of looking at my data. What makes this really nice is the fact that this will update on the fly. If I was to go and add something new to my data, something new that popped in down here, so I'm going to go to my actual form. I already have it ready, and I'm just going to hit submit. So now it's just added this new one right here, and if I look, it already ran everything, and it was transposing it on the fly. So as new data comes in, if you set it up correctly, everything will come in and be sorted or transposed or filtered. So that's a nice little thing that you can do with transpose. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to filter data that's coming in. Once again, this is something that will filter things on the fly and only show me certain things. Here I have my data that I came into my Google form. I've compressed things a little bit because I want to show how the sorting is going to be working right over here so I don't have to have multiple windows open. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to filter these questions here. This one is, what's the first Star Wars movie? How many sides to the Force? Here, obviously, the correct answer is 2. There's the light side and there's the dark side. What I want to do is I want to find out who put that there was only 2 on there. In other words, who got the correct answer? This is kind of a primitive way of grading this. So I'm going to filter and only return the names and the entries for those that put the correct answer there. Now, I'm going to use the filter function to actually just return a set of data that meets a special criteria. So here's the questions I have here. What's the first Star Wars movie? And this one is how many sides to the Force? Well, the correct answer, of course, is 2, light side and dark side. I want to know, what are the names of the people who actually got that question correctly? So I'm going to use the filter feature for that. So I'm going to start by hitting the equal sign and typing out my function, filter, and my range is going to be A2, and I'm going to filter all the way to the letter I. I'm going to do this in infinite range, all the way on down there. The condition is I want to know everything that's in F2 to F, and this part here is very key. I have to make sure that these are going the exact same length down. I'm going A2 to I, F2 to F, so both of these are literally going all the way to the bottom of the screen, wherever that might be. So I want to know those, and I want to know if F2 to F is equal to 2, because that's, of course, the correct answer, how many sides there are to the force. I'm going to close that out, and now I have a much smaller range. I only have the ones here of the people who got it right. I have all the other data as well, but now it's only returning those. And this, of course, will update on the fly. If I was to input a new one here that had the correct answer, and it had, well, they got the correct part here. They know that it was, of course, 2 sides to the force. Those would pop up in here. All the rest do not. Now, of course, I do have a little bit extra junk that came along with this. Maybe I don't need to see the timestamp. Maybe I don't need to see their username, but I do want to see their name. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my formula and I'm going to change it. Maybe instead of A2 to I, the only part that I really want is just the name. So really, that's just C2 to C. So now I'm only going to filter, I only want to see the names of the people who got this column correct. Hit return, and now I can see these are the people who got it right. So just by changing a little bit my original formula there, I don't need to bring all the other stuff with. Now I'm just pulling the name with the filter function. I'm going to go back just for a second to show you when, of course, you have a very large range here. So I had A2 to I. And of course, it filled up a lot of the screen here. One thing that you do need to be careful of, if you happen to have anything in one of these cells before you enable the sort, you're going to run into a lot of problems. So I'm going to get rid of that for just a moment. And of course, everything disappears. Well, let's say I had data right there. Now, I'm going to run into a problem if I try to input my thing again, because it's going to say array result was not expanded because it would overwrite data in N3. It's basically saying, hey, there's junk in the way here. It's not going to do that whole sort and filter for me because there's something in the way. If you delete it, now it can do it. And once again, remember, these can't be deleted, these can't be removed. Of course, they're just going to be re-added. It disappeared for a moment, but it does come back. So you just have to make sure that you have enough room to expand this whole thing out. Otherwise, it'll say, warning, we're about to overwrite some data. One last thing to be aware of course, if my criteria is too strict, let's say I wanted to know who put -3, and you enter that, all of a sudden it's going to say NA. No matches are found. That's basically saying no one did -3. If I change that to something that was a digit, like someone who put in 3, there we go. Boba Fett, that rascal, he put in 3 sides to the Force. So if you're too strict, if there's nothing that actually matches, if it's saying, hey, we couldn't find anything, it will say NA and it will say no matches are found in your filter evaluation. Another one that I want to show you is the sort function. Sort is going to be very similar to filter, except it's not going to be pulling things out. It's just going to be arranging them in sort of a hierarchy. You can have multiple different layers. Let me show you. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to type sort. And now I want to sort the entire range. So I'm going to do A2 to I. But the column that I want to sort by is, I want to first see what period number they were. So that is going to be column 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be my sort column is going to be 4. And now the next thing is it going to be ascending or descending? Do I want it going up or going down? For now, I'm going to put true, because I want this to be ascending. I could, of course, do it by false, and it would be the opposite there. I'm going to close that out. And now what you see is I have a lot of data here. I'm going to try to clean this up a little bit there, but now I can see it's taken all these entries right here and it sorted them. So this is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Then it ran to the end of those 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, etc., etc. So these are all sorted. Remember, once again, this is my root cell and everything here is off of it. Can't delete it, can't remove it. You have to remove actually the root cell there. Now if I was to change this and change this from true to false, it's going to change this so that it's sorted by descending. So that's a really simple flip right there to change how you want that. I'm going to go back to true, but I can actually sort this by multiple criteria. Let's say I want to sort it by first this one, what period they have, and then the second thing is I want to know how many sides of the force they actually said. So I'm going to do a second criteria. My next column I want it to be is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this one here, once again, I'll do in ascending order. So I'll put true. Now it's done a second sort on top of it. So of course, everything is still sorted. My first one, the most important one, is these are all period 1. But the second thing it's going to be sorting by is the number of sides of the force. So this here is now in ascending order. I have to change that to be the second one I want to have in descending order. So now I'm still sorting. This one is still the most important, but now it's sorting the second part here in descending order. It's very simple to make multiple sorts off of one set of data. Last thing I want to show you is this neat little trick called the unique feature. So I have my data here of all the different years and makes and models of all the different Star Wars Legos. I want to find out, hey, how many years were they actually doing it? Now I've done a couple different ways. I've done count unique, but what if instead of counting the number of uniques, I want to see what all those unique ones are? So I'm going to use the function unique, and I want to do, my range is just going to be very simple here. I want to do E2 to E. And here I can see, of course I have 17 ones here. I could do that with the quick count or other different ways. But here it's actually going to show me, not only do you have 17 unique ones, here's what those unique ones are. I could do something similar with the number of pieces, so I could change that F2 to F, and of course I'll get lots of data in there. But you'll notice it's not going to go all the way to the bottom because there are some duplicates. But this is how many different unique ones I have. So nice, simple little thing gives you nice, simple, clean results very, very quickly. Once again, here's my root cell. The only way to delete this data is to delete the root.